All right, hi everyone. I'm Tamara Bean, and I'm here with Janae Harvey from Tomorrow's Voices. So we're just going to jump right into the questions. What is your role at Tomorrow's Voices?
So I am a senior behavior therapist here at Tomorrow's Voices.
Okay. And what led you to the start in this field?
So when I went to university, I did an undergrad in psychology, and I also got a master's in speech pathology and audiology. So I really wanted to find a happy medium or a blend between my two fields. For my undergrad capstone project for psychology, I had to do a capstone placement. So here on the island of Bermuda, this is the only applied behavior analysis clinic. So I was lucky enough to be able to come here and do my placement here. At that point, I was able to see a happy blend of the two fields that I was pursuing. Hence why I wanted to go further in this field.
Okay. So, how did you arrive at this position?
So, as mentioned, I did an undergrad in psychology and speech pathology. I also did a minor in disabilities. After that point, I went and did my master's in educational psychology with an emphasis in applied behavior analysis. I started at Tomorrow's Voices while still pursuing my master's degree. At that point, I was heavily working towards getting my BCBA, my board certified, being a board certified behavior analysis, to eventually become the senior here.
Okay. So, what steps did you take to get to where you are today?
I would have to say a lot of exposure, especially with doing the different fields and different degrees, getting exposure in each one and kind of seeing where my niche was, going and doing speech services and going and doing different counseling services and kind of figuring out that counseling really wasn't what I was interested in, just firsthand experience to kind of figure out what I enjoyed the most, kind of helped me narrow in and get where I am today.
Okay. Can you describe your personal philosophy when it comes to therapy?
I would have to say that making sure that it is socially significant, everything that we select to teach, making sure that it's not the goals that you want to see for the individual, but it's the goals that the parent and are most beneficial for that individual, so that you're not solely making decisions based off of the client's age, but also how does the family live, what types of things are going to be significant to that family.
What is your goal? What goal do you have when students are enrolled at Tomorrow's Voices?
It really depends on each individual. The first goal that I assess to kind of make sure they have is that they have some type of communication system. Yeah. So I want to make sure they have communication system. I want to make sure that they have some type of leisurely activity. So after a communication system, I want to make sure they have leisurely activities that they can engage in. Just because it's not all about academics, I want to make sure they have a better quality of life. And then after I make sure they have some type of communication system and working on leisure, then I'll look at how they performed on their assessment and make an individualized curriculum to work on those other goals that may be specific to that individual,
Okay.
but mainly communication.
Okay. What are the behavioral practices that you use?
So as mentioned, we use applied behavior analysis. That's really a teaching method. So we take the principles of behavior to teach skills that are socially significant.
When interacting with parents, what is the most important thing you want them to understand or take away from their child's experience here at Tomorrow's Voices?
I would have to say stressing to them the importance of being systematic. So oftentimes parents have goals for their children and sometimes they want to work on those goals but not realizing how being systematic can also lead you to there and have them have success. I also like to stress the importance of crossover and communication so that everyone's on the same page, just so that the individuals are getting consistency.
What do you think is the best way to get parents more involved?
We do communication both daily and send that home to parents, but we're now trying to do more video communication just because you can see something in writing, but that doesn't, like your interpretation may be different from my interpretation. So kind of having them see it video, so not just us sending video, but them sending videos to us so that we can have a back and forth video dialogue so that everyone is accurately seeing it, right?
What are the pros of your job?
I would say that I get to see success. I get to communicate with parents and tell them that their children are doing things that they didn't even dream possible. That's definitely one of the major pros for me.
Okay. And can you describe the cons of your job?
As mentioned earlier, we are the only applied behavior analysis center on island, so oftentimes I get calls on a daily basis for individuals who want services. We do one-on-one services, so we do have a wait list. Having to speak with parents and let them know that we do have such a great service, but then let them know that that service is not available or not yet available. That's one of the cons.
Who do you collaborate with at the job and outside of this job?
I collaborate a lot with my team. Just to kind of bounce ideas over one another, other professionals. So if we go on a multidisciplinary team, so say for example, the individual is receiving speech or OT or other disciplinaries, just to kind of see what their goals are so that we can compare goals and see if we're overlapping because you don't want to come into a situation where we're all targeting the same thing or like just to kind of see how we can help offset one another and complement each other's programs rather than doing each other's programs verbatim, right? Um,
Okay. What are your personal strengths in this field?
I would have to say now at this point would be my creativity. Just from working with many different clients, my ability to kind of learn different program changes and different ideas that could potentially work for another client. So because of that experience, I'm now finding it easier to develop unique and novel program-like changes. So I would consider that to be a strength at this point for me right now.
Can you tell me some of the things that you can also work on?
I'm actually working on it now, doing more, not just parent communication or community trainings, more so inspirational speeches and stuff like that. Just because it is such a small field, a lot of people don't really know about the field. So what I'm trying to do is go. I've been invited to a number of prize givings to speak to high school students and just to kind of motivate them and let them know that where they can be and how much of an impact they can make if they continue on the path to eventually try to grow the field from a different angle rather than speaking to other professionals or speaking to parents who are already established in where they are trying to reach the youth.
Okay. Um, do you think that this therapy can be used for all children with learning or intellectual disabilities?
Yeah, I definitely do. Applied behavior analysis is merely a teaching method. It can be applied to any individual. It can be with any intellectual disability. It can be applied to individuals who are neurotypically developing. It can be applied to adults, any population. It's not really specific to a particular population. It's just a teaching method that emphasizes on data collection so that you can track what you're doing.
Um, do you have any future goals in this field of work?
I would like to do a publication of a paper. I did just recently go overseas and present at a workshop. A lot of people were interested in the study and asked me to publish it. So that's something I'm thinking about, doing more overseas trainings like symposiums. So that's something that I'm thinking about doing in the future.
Okay. Uh, how do you find working with other professionals that have the same goals as you for children, but you necessarily don't see eye to eye in your philosophy or training of therapy?
Um, Oftentimes what I ask them to do is ask them first of all, do they have research or do they have any data? Because sometimes you can learn from them and kind of see when you do get to a point, like you said, after that point you're still not seeing eye to eye. What then I try to do is present my research and my data collection to kind of show them where I'm coming from. But oftentimes when you get in situations like that, the best thing to do is rely on your data collection as your evidence and as your proof for, and to back you up and kind of say, although we're not seeing eye to eye, this is where I'm coming from and this is why, and I'm staying firm with what I'm saying with because of this long list of research and data collection. So always having something to kind of back you up. And oftentimes you never really know. Sometimes you may not see eye to eye, but then when you present them with those findings, they're kind of like, it makes more sense, right? And sometimes coming from you as an individual is different than coming from the research, right? Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that ABA is a growing field in Bermuda?
I definitely think it's growing in Bermuda, which is really good to see. I'm hearing the term much more. I'm hearing a lot of the behavioral principles, like some of those key terms associated with ABA being thrown around much more, which is really good to see that there is much more awareness than it has been in the past.
Do you find collaborating with professionals helpful?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I specify in applied behavior analysis, which is the teaching method, right? So the data collection and those types of things. So when I collaborate with other professionals, it really gives me insight on, say, for example, a speech or OT, the types of goals that are age-appropriate norms. So I can kind of know, although I'm writing programs, what are appropriate targets. So I may know how to write the programs, but collaborating with other professionals, so I have more insight of what I really should be writing programs for or focusing on to develop the best program or curriculum for my individuals.
If you was not a BCBA, what other direction would you go in the field of special education or?
I would have to say, given my educational background, it would probably be speech pathology. That is where a lot of my time outside of psychology and ABA was spent as far as developing myself. So it would have to be speech.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that concludes our interview with Janae Harvey at Tomorrow's Voices. So I hope you enjoyed.